Hey, everybody, and welcome to the For Female Founders podcast series, where we are helping women in business learn to thrive, not just survive. I am your host, Sarah Bundy, and today we have Madeleine Shaw with us. Madeleine is a social entrepreneur who is one of the earliest groundbreaking leaders in popularizing menstrual health and equity through developing Luna Pads cloth menstrual pads and period underwear in the early 1990s. In 2014, she founded G-Day, a national event series for adolescent girls. And in 2017, she launched Nestworks, a family-friendly co-working community. Her current ventures include Autumn Collective, which is an event series for menopausal women, and Everywhere Designs, an eco-fashion brand. Her book, The Greater Good, Social Entrepreneurship for Everyday People Who Want to Change the World, was published in 2021. Madeleine, welcome to the show.
I'm so thrilled to be here, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you. I've loved getting to know you over the last few years, especially recently we kind of reconnected. I've kind of gone back and I used to work and connect a lot with your business partner from Luna Pads. And you have built incredible businesses in your career. You are an innovator, you are a disruptor, you are the most empathetic leader that I've met in a really long time. You're a designer, you're just all of these amazing inspirational things. So first of all, I want to thank you for what you've done for the world, because it's amazing. I'm excited to hear more about what you're going to continue to do for the world. But today we're actually going to talk about redefining success, especially for women in business. We're going to talk about purpose-driven entrepreneurship, because that's kind of what you do for a living. So maybe you can tell us a little more about how you got into social entrepreneurship and how you came to realize that these purpose-driven companies was you. That was what you needed to do with your life.
Yeah, thank you for that. And thank you for all those kind words. It means a great deal to me coming from you. Mm-hmm. I guess I would start by observing that this all starts from my own personal journey. Like, I think so many entrepreneurs, it's not just, I saw a market gap or something. Like, there's some moment of personal, element. And in my case, that was discovering feminism. Mm-hmm. Honestly, when I was probably around 17. And honestly, when I look back, like, I've always had sort of rebellious anti-authoritarian tendencies, got kicked out of school. Like, a lot of things happened where there was this form of resistance. But also just really wanting social change, like really, really wanting things to be different, like seeing that there were inequities in society and wanting to change that. And so for me, like, everything is motivated by sort of that social justice, if you will, but also creativity. And so for me, my practice of social entrepreneurship is kind of a marriage of those two things, or a relationship of those two things, just believing that you don't necessarily need to accept the rules such as they are and definitions of success, to your wonderful topic, just as they're presented to you, and then you've got to fit yourself in and you've got to figure out how it works and you've got to win. I really come from a place of like, do these rules actually make sense for everyone? Mm-hmm. And what actually matters to me. And so, yeah, I always look for impact in my practice as an entrepreneur, and it sort of drives everything I do. And yeah, so that's in a nutshell what social entrepreneurship looks like for me.
I think that's great. And it's interesting because on the podcast that I just recently recorded as well, we were talking about how women define success in business. And it isn't the typical capitalistic all profit, all revenue only type of model. There is an impact piece. There is a lifestyle piece. There is a community piece. And this is what you've lived for your whole life as an entrepreneur. Can you unravel that a little bit more about all the different variables of success to you?
Yeah. And I mean, I would observe that, like, to me, for any woman, however she wants to define success for herself on her terms, is perfect and beautiful and exactly the way I would want that to be. Mm-hmm. So what I'm prescribing is not something universal. It's very personal that I think offers just sort of an alternative take. Like, when I think about one example, you mentioned my wonderful business partner, Suzanne Siemens, who is a very good friend and was my business partner for over 25 years in Luna Pads. And she had 2 kids. I had one over a period of around 5 years. And, you know, we were working, like there was no maternity leave available for us. And so we brought the kids to work with us. And it was incredible. Like so many people would come into the office for a meeting and, you know, one of us be sitting there breastfeeding and, you know, just carrying on because, you know, a spreadsheet doesn't care if you're breastfeeding or not. But for so many people, it was so novel. It was so disruptive just to see that, oh, you can do that. You can bring your children to work with you. Like, what? And that actually, that bit of history that went on for about 5 years turned out to be the genesis for Nestworks, which is a family-friendly co-working space that I operated for a few years. And so it's funny how these ideas, like, I think for women, these things come from the realities of our lives. Like, you know, if we're raising children, if we're caring for elders, if, you know, whatever it is, like this broader notion of family and community where success is not just for us and how much, and defined by, you know, how much money I make, how many awards I win, how many people I have under me in terms of a traditional power structure or hierarchy. And I think women generally, again, are perhaps a little more community minded and a little more looking not just to give back, but to like really make people's lives more livable. And including for men, non-binary people, any, you know, whoever, right? And yeah, so I know for myself, that's always been true. Like, obviously you need to support yourself, you need to support your family, you know, things need to make sense financially. But for me, if there isn't impact at the core of what I am pursuing, it just doesn't mean that much to me. Like, I just have trouble seeing the value. And especially in the times that we're in, I think that there needs to be a real rethinking of impact as not just a nice to have or the give back or the, you know, that type of framing where we're still, you know, participating in something that's fundamentally extractive. And prioritizing, you know, maximizing shareholder value or the things that we've always done in business and accepted as like, well, that's fine. And look at all the money they're making. And these other things are externalities. And, you know, we have names for them, but in reality, it's like we're in a climate emergency where, you know, we've got the collapse of so many systems. We've got people, you know, wealth and equity like we've never seen. And, you know, it literally is killing people. Like, it's not sustainable in any way, not just environmentally. And so what can social entrepreneurship make possible when we center impact?
With Awin's marketing technology platform, you can easily discover the best partners who connect you with huge audiences of new customers. Understand how your partnerships are performing with intuitive reporting and only pay for the results you need. Start today and grow your own way with Awin. I love that. And really what you're talking about is someone's why, right? So It's not just what are we doing, what problem are we solving, but why are we doing it? And when you can lead with this intrinsic motivation, that's where you build these incredible cultures in business, corporate cultures, and these amazing communities that buy into that purpose and reason why they need to get on board and support an initiative. How do you communicate your why to people?
Yeah, and I love that question. And to me, like, as much or more than any financial projections or solid business model or whatever you've got going, operations plans, HR people, having an understanding of the why and having the ability to articulate that as a story to people is, I wrote an entire chapter about it in my book. In fact, 2 chapters, one on storytelling and one on relationships, because really at the end of the day, even in this era of AI and, you know, things being so digital, to me, the value of relationship and being able to trust someone, being able to, you know, believe in something that you know is true, is more powerful than pretty much anything. Like, I'm going to make a bold prediction and say that I think we're going to see a huge comeback in word of mouth marketing. I really do, because it's like people look at, you know, they look online and they don't know what's real anymore because we don't know that, right? But if I sit down for lunch with you and you tell me about a product or a service or an organization or something like that, I'm going to believe that because I know you, I trust in your integrity and so on. And anyways, but but part of how you develop that trust is by the storytelling, the why. Why am I doing this? Like if I tell you about this new venture that I'm developing right now about upcycling denim to benefit nonprofit societies to help them diversify their revenue stream, like that's what I'm doing in real time right now. And it's kind of exciting, like when we realize the potential of like taking something, assets that we already have, which are secondhand clothing, and repurposing the stories of those garments into really creative new products that are upcycled, and as a community living, learning new skills together in the process of doing that, which is what I've been doing all weekend. I mean, it's amazing. Like things, they're so, even like I'm a big believer in simple things and kind of almost revalorizing those things, because we're always looking for something that's sort of simple from a digital perspective. And to me, it's like the power of the in-person experience, actual relationship, storytelling. And because you get the emotional hit of where someone is coming from. You can feel that. And I think that's irreplaceable you can't replicate it in the digital world.
I think you're so bang on. And I've always appreciated that, whether you mean to be or not, you're quite the pioneer in things, because you seem to see before something happens where the gap and the need is. And it always comes from this place of a very humanitarian, very like full heart place. And knowing that people are becoming exasperated by the lack of connectivity. You've made some very cognizant decisions about how you spend your time online, or even whether you spend your time online. And a lot of what you spend your time on is that person-to-person relationship, and it is in partnerships, and it is in community, and it is in conversation and storytelling, as you had mentioned. And I think, to your point, that's what people have been craving for the last 4 or 5 years, ever since COVID hit. We became very disconnected, and now we need to reconnect. And I love that you create these different companies and not-for-profits and environments where people can do that over something creative, such as upcycling denim. Like, what a cool idea.
Yeah, thank you. And I believe also, like, and thank you for saying all those things. And I don't know if it's prescience, or in a way there's part of me that's a bit retro at this point. Like, I'm 57, right? So I grew up without the internet. I built a business without e-commerce, like all LunaPads, all that stuff happened before any of that really became a thing. And I learned that the pleasure of doing it was the making and the selling and the being with people and developing relationships and doing all of that, not just scaling something. Like, it feels now like we almost treat businesses like commodities unto themselves. And so for, the task of an entrepreneur isn't just to create a product or service that we love and believe in and has a story. And, we find ways to share that with people and share, make sure there's good value for our customers and so on. It's to take this, I'm going to package this business, and I'm going to pitch it, and I'm going to get it financed, and I'm going to scale it, and then I'm going to sell it, and then I'm going to exit. And that's how you win. And I'm like, I've been winning every single day for the last 35 years by doing work that has integrity, that I enjoy. And it's funny, I don't know exactly when it went into that Dragon's Den mode of, or Shark Tank or whatever. It's very driven by the sort of Silicon Valley tech culture. But I want to circle back to one thing you said about that sort of predictive prescient thing. Like, I really do think in an era of climate collapse, of political, let's call it instability, to be kind, like, are there enough people who know how to plant gardens, who know how to bake bread, who know how to repair things, who know how to practice first response, who, like these really basic skills that we've kind of almost bypassed and have gone, but do you know how to code? Right. And AI, right? What are the things that AI can't do? And these are these basic, almost survival skills that increase like community resilience, a sense of personal competence, and like just to go sort of back to those basic things. And that's sort of what I want to teach and explore, because I think those are the backbone of community economic resilience and creativity, and also, to your point, connection, right? When we come together and learn those things, we're not doing it on a screen. We're not doing it virtually. And then we're having conversations, then we have relationships. And then if things really do go to hell, then we actually know each other.
Right. And we have basic survival skills, like being able to cook bake some bread and grow a garden and sew some clothes together.
Yep.
It's actually funny that you bring that up. My business partner, Michaela Stewart, she's in her late 20s, and she and a lot of her friends right now are learning how to sew and learning how to bake bread and learning how to, it's almost like they're trying to get as much knowledge and wisdom from the grandmother generation.
Yes.
But they can right now, because they don't, like, I have to go to my daughter to sew my stuff because I don't know how to sew. That's embarrassing for me, but she knows how to do it because their generation is starting to see we don't have basic survival skills, and we better double down while that wisdom and knowledge is there to actually pass it on with hands and, with support and people mentorship. Like, that is a limited window of opportunity right now that I think is there. And I love that you're leading that. And I also love seeing and hearing that younger generations are leaning into it more as well. A great big thank you to our sponsors, PartnerStack. PartnerStack's ecosystem connects you to the world's largest B2B network for you to earn, connect, and grow.
I agree. And that way it becomes a muscle memory. And then you've got this intergenerational transfer of wisdom and knowledge and lore and craft and this incredible power. So I agree. And I would also further observe that, some people have framed the things that I've done as being kind of prescient, as you did. But I would observe that all I've ever really done is take very old ideas and kind of modernize them. Like, if you think about it, through most of human history and menstrual history, products were never disposable.
Right.
They were all reusable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And same with, communities raising their children together and combining work and parenting, like this whole separation of, dropping our kids at daycare and this institutionalization of so many things has come post industrial revolution and this whole, corporate, world. So I look to the past and to find the best ideas for the future in a lot of the things I do. And same with upcycling. It's just repairing and being creative and making new, doing what you can with what you've got where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what else I think, especially for you, like you are one of these really mindful entrepreneurs who genuinely takes into consideration the ecosystem around you and who you're impacting. And you have constantly acknowledged and given tribute to Indigenous communities as well. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the things that you're talking about in regards to harvesting and growing nature, and it takes a village to grow a family and all of these things, is actually very Indigenous culture rich as well. Do you lean on Indigenous culture as well to help inspire some of these things? Do you include it because you feel it's the right thing to do? Does it just interest you? Like, how does that whole piece fit into your life and world?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I would start by really being super clear that I am from a multi-generational family of white settlers. So I lay no claim to any form of Indigenous heritage in my own life whatsoever, but you raise such a good point. So this thinking of like cyclical and wisdom is what I would call it generally, is something, so many of the things that people are now thinking, oh, that's such a great idea, recycling, it's like Indigenous populations have been practicing this for millennia, of being mindful of the environment, of sustainability, of everything being connected. Interconnectedness, right? Like, that is, as I understand it, an Indigenous idea that has been in their worldview, their economy, sharing economy, right? Mm-hmm. This idea of like, and even ownership of land is like, that is not, these are things now that we're looking at and going, oh, wow, that's a really great idea. And how can we be more economically just and sustainable? I think, looking at Indigenous ways of being and economies are absolutely a really fantastic place to look for that. Yes.
I love that. And I love that you acknowledge and give so much credit. And even at the beginning of this podcast, I had to shorten it because there were so many good things and ways to introduce you, but even wanted to have the recognition on the land and territory that we were presenting this podcast on, was a piece that I just really appreciated. Of all of the podcast guests I've ever had, you were the only one who actually said, can we please recognize the land that we were on. So I appreciate that very much about you too. So thank you so much. I'd like to talk a little bit about your definition of success today, and how it has shifted over the last 35 years of you being an entrepreneur. Has it changed at all? And if so, what has changed?
Yeah, thank you. I'd say, has it changed? Yes and no. So in the sense that I'm always looking to make a difference, but what kind of difference has sort of, evolved. Like, when I started out, I wasn't yet a parent. And so I didn't really understand this whole dynamic of raising kids and work and like work-life balance and all that. So I've kind of gone to different issues. And in many ways, though, when it comes to the mechanisms of success, like how I kind of had to get over the idea of traditional business success. Like because at first I did think that, all of a sudden, like you've got to scale and you've got to make, if you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not, this sort of stuff. And hustle culture has been a really, I would say, toxic force in my life. But it was very cool. Like, I mean, I began my career as an entrepreneur in the early 1990s. So not long before the first tech bubble emerged and how that culture was just starting. And then we had, of course, the advent of the internet and Facebook and social media, and all these things were kind of emerging as I was growing as an entrepreneur. And I'm looking around going, okay, I need to be like that. I need to be a girl boss. I need to be like Sophie Amoruso, or I need to be like Marie Forleo, or I need to be like Steve Jobs. Like these were kind of the icons, like these hyper individualistic, very charismatic, very like disruptors. And I gotta say, like, the term disruptor has always sat so uneasily with me. Mm-hmm. And there's always been a little voice inside me that has said, can't we just try and fix things? But that never seemed cool, because you're supposed to have like big, hairy, audacious goals and all these kinds of the Jim Collins, like the Good to Great, all that stuff. Like it all seemed to me to be about bigger and better and more and faster. And it just never, it never landed for me. It was like, I am in this to make someone's life better or make the planet a cleaner place. Mm-hmm. And not that that's all that matters to me, like, but when I spoke to earlier about the relationship, right? About what it's like to actually talk to customers, like how many period stories do you think I've heard from customers? And do I ever get tired of them? No, I don't. Yeah. Because what a privilege is it to get to hear this very intimate thing, for someone to share that with you voluntarily, joyfully. Like, I don't know, it just always does something for me, because I think it matters. It's like those you are automatically, like, you can really feel that person. Mm-hmm. And often that kind of intimacy can take years, before we feel that with another human. And I think that it's that kind of connection and that kind of sharing really that comes down to it for me. It's being with other people and doing something together. And that stands in very stark contrast to this, like, I, me, my, very hyper individual, power over more is better, thing that I just think, I mean, look no further than the United States right now. I'm so sorry. It's such a horrible, huge example right now, but just to see the absolute, like, the terminal, like, extreme version of that culture and that belief system and believing in that, that's what you get. And it's, and so, yeah, like I said earlier, do what you can with what you've got, with who you are with now. And it's not like the belief that we need to go big or go home. Like, that's another really horrible, framing that we just sort of accept, and that it's all about growth. And, I consider myself these days to be sort of a post-scale entrepreneur, I would say. Like, I'm interested in business models that I call proliferative. So sort of think dandelion seeds, as opposed to, like, I call it the Egyptian business model, honestly, up and to the right. Because that it's unsustainable in any way. It's like, how can you create things like, even that, just questioning that alone, like, what is the ideal business model, or growth trajectory is kind of a radical thing to do in the business world.
Yeah, and what is sustainable, and like what can your energy even pursue over a period of time? Because if things become soul sucking or energy sucking, and all at the end of the day it does is you lying on your deathbed, looking at your big mountain of cash or empire, and you're empty in every other way, you can't take that stuff with you, and you haven't left really a legacy behind. So,
Yeah.
you know, maybe that makes some people happy, but you're talking about something very, very different. You're talking about cultivating, you're talking about harvesting, you're talking about nurturing. You're talking about leaving the planet and humanity literally a better place, even if it's slower, even if it's simple. And that to you feels fulfilling and successful to you.
It does.
I think a lot of women will resonate with. I think a lot of people resonate with that.
Yes. Yeah. It's just we've kind of been sold this glamorized version where we are the product, we're being extracted from, like, to this very potent image that you just shared of somebody just lying there going, I'm done. I have all this money. I have the yacht. I have the whatever. I don't know what, but you're 24/7, you're, rise and grind, whatever, it got all sucked out of you. And meanwhile, what about the planet? Like, what about, we're literally destroying our home.
And you listen to your stories of how many women have told you their stories, their menstrual stories or period stories, and you don't get tired of that because they're giving you a piece of themselves, and it's a gift, and that's energy that is mutual propulsion versus one side is energy sucked and the other side is not, or the other. There's just a giving and a taking that is nurturing, something like that.
That's right.
So I can see why those types of conversations are so fulfilling and fueling for you, to want you to continue the work that you're doing and really create community. And I know we're coming at the end of time here, but I do have one or two last questions. Yeah. You talk a lot in your work about building community and the impact that community has on creating social enterprises or social entrepreneurship. Do you have any tips or advice for people who are trying to do the same thing and maybe they're just starting out or they haven't gotten it quite right yet? What worked for you and what do you suggest for them?
Yeah. So it goes back to this why storytelling narrative. So the basic activity is to talk to people and tell people, share your ideas. It doesn't need to be perfect, doesn't need to be, bulletproof, whatever weird language we have around those things. Just share the story, share your why story. It's like, this happened to me and I recognize this and this is how I'm trying to solve this. And just tell anyone. Tell, like, whoever's babysitting your kids, tell your neighbor, tell your friend. I don't care. Like, just tell someone and practice that act and then listen. So it's not just the I talk, you listen. It's you listen. What's going on with that person's life? Like, so many entrepreneurs I know have come across their ideas because of something that happened to someone that they love. Right? Their kid was on the autism spectrum. Their brother overdosed. Their whatever. Like, there's these things that happen in people's lives, happen in all our lives. And they were like, oh my God, I have an idea. How could that have been different? Or how could that have been more supportive? Or how can I make this person's life easier? And we go from there. And so I think it's about just being in dialogue with our fellow humans about what's really going on. And also critically, not being afraid to ask for help. It's seen as weak. Like, we've got asking for help all wrong, like I think people are sort of feel weird about it or feel like they've somehow failed or they, whatever. And it's like, no. Like, this is an opportunity to connect. This is an opportunity for people to bring their skills together. Like, I'm terrible at so many things. Like, honestly, I really am. And I'm fine with that because I don't need to be, because I have other people who can help me and they want to, and they're great. And, and I know it might sound kind of idealistic, but I think emotionally for a lot of people, it's hard, that act of sort of going, I'm having trouble figuring this out on my own, because you're supposed to, again, the entrepreneurial construct is you're supposed to be the leader, right? You go into founder mode and you tell everybody how it is. And there's this top down, very paternalistic kind of ideal that I just think it's not helpful. And also I go back to there's an amazing African proverb that if you go alone, you'll go faster, but if we go together, then we'll go further. And I always remember that. It's like our ideas are always made better by the input from others. And so, yeah, I would say like, and also as an act, that conversation, that sharing things, like it's free.
And I'll also say that we might be actually preventing someone from finding joy by not asking for help, because a lot of human beings love helping people. And so if you say, I really need help with this, I don't know what to do, hands will go up, because there is a joy in being service oriented and a joy in helping solve problems for people. So I'm with you about ask for help. I had to learn that the long way, a very long time ago. You know, I had the CEO hat on when I was new and younger and thought I had to add all the answers. And it was stagnating to the company and myself and the team. Finally, when I stopped doing that, I was like, okay, I actually need help in all of these areas. And it was amazing what happened with the company once, you know, you kind of open that door to the opportunities of everybody else's skills, talent, passions, desire to do better for others. So I think it's a really valid and important point. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, unfortunately, we are at time, but how do people contact you, Madeleine, if they'd like to keep in touch?
Yeah, great question. So I'm not a big social media person. I don't know. It's not my jam. That said, I really like LinkedIn. And so that is the number one. I know it's kind of old school and whatever. And technically I'm on Instagram at Madeleine, but I don't post frequently. There's a link tree link there and people can find links to my other projects. That I need to update. But yeah, LinkedIn is the number one. And I would love to hear from anyone, and people have questions or want to talk more. I would love to hear from you.
Thank you so much. And also people can check you out at madeleineshaw.com.
.ca.
.ca.
Perfect. Yeah, or thegreatergood.work. And yeah, and also I have a workbook that's out in addition to my book. And so that's kind of a fun, little more right brain business planning tool that people can use. Yeah.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you to our listeners. And we look forward to seeing you guys on the next show.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks for listening to the 4 Female Founders podcast series. If you enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe, like, or comment below so we can continue to support women in business by helping them thrive, not just survive. We'll see you on the next show.